GMs are officially out as of Tuesday, and honestly, they're easier than ever. But if you do end up going in without the right build, things are going to be a lot harder, and even if you do end up getting the clear, chances are you could still do it even faster. So in this video, I wanted to go over 3 of the best GM builds in Destiny, 1 for each class, that should work in both team and solo settings for the most part. These builds are also pretty meta-defining. I mean, if they work well in GMs with beefed up modifiers and champions while also playing under power, then they're gonna work just about anywhere. As always, if you guys do enjoy the video or any of the builds I go over, make sure to drop a like and sub down below. And with that said, let's hop into things with build number 1. We are starting off on Titan, and obviously we're going with the heart of Inmost Light, Arc Titan. For general play, Storm Grenades are still going to be your best option, and in my opinion, they're all you really need. When I end up running this build, I usually just stay on my primary for stunning champions in 90% of the GM, and then just spam grenades to kill them. The ad clear with Jolt is completely unmatched, and the nice part is, if you do end up reaching the boss at the end of the strike with no heavy ammo, then you can still deal decent damage with just your grenades. On screen now is the full subclass layout. T-Crash is going to be great against champions. Thruster is used for spamming your class ability for increased grenade regen, and then I personally always prefer to use Shoulder Charge over Thunderclap. Storm Grenades, as I mentioned, are going to be a must on this build, and we are also running Touch of Thunder to enhance these grenades, giving it increased duration and the ability to track to enemies. Plus, we also have Knockout to give us health back on melee kills. Fragment-wise, Spark of Regen gives us a ton of energy to our abilities when we are critical, which is going to happen a lot in GrandMaster Nightfalls. Spark of Shock gives our grenades Jolt for increased damage and ad clear potential. Spark of Magnitude gives us increased duration, and then Spark of Resistance just helps keep us alive with a solid 25% damage reduction. Heart of Inmost Light is the piece that brings everything together, giving us up to 800% increased ability regen just by spamming our abilities like normal. The mods that I choose to run with the build are also super simple. We have Elemental Ordnance so that our Storm Grenades spawn in Elemental Wells, Elemental Charge so that grabbing these Elemental Wells makes us charged with light, and then lastly 3 copies of the mod Firepower so that whenever we throw our grenade, we get 45% of the next grenade right back. Since we are spamming Thruster, I do also like to have Bomber on for increased grenade regen, which helps a ton here too. Overall, this is one of the best builds in the entire game and will likely be nerfed going into Lightfall, so make sure to use this while you can for an easy conqueror or even clearing other content. Personally, I think this is the best build in all of Destiny right now because of its effectiveness and its ease of use. Changing over to Warlock, we have the Starfire Protocol build. I know this is a super old build, really popping into the meta starting in Season of the Haunted when Solar 3.0 came out, but it's still one of the best in the game. Double fusion grenades with the regen we are getting are insanely good against champions because they explode 4 total times while also triggering an ignition. And since champions are one of the toughest enemies in the game, this damage is returned to us as increased super energy gains. So not only do we have insane ad clear and great damage against bosses and champions, but we also get to spam our super, making this more effective than even running Phoenix Protocol. For this build, you don't really need any mods either. First and foremost, make sure you are on Well of Radiance. Empowering Rift is good, but if you do struggle to survive, Healing Rift does work too. I personally prefer Celestial Fire as my melee just because of the increased range, and then obviously Fusion Grenades. Touch of Flame is what gives our grenades the ability to explode twice, and then I also like running Icarus Dash for movement, but Heat Rises works here too if you prefer that. For fragments, you want to make sure you're fully spec'd into ignitions. Ember of Combustion gives our ignitions increased AoE, which helps with ad clear and spreading Scorch. Then Ember of Char is used to transfer Scorch stacks to enemies when ignitions are triggered. Ember of Torches is used to proc Radiant on solar melee hits so that we can do some extra weapon damage. And then lastly, Ember of Ashes is used to maximize Scorch stacks that we apply, making it easier to proc ignitions back to back. Lastly, all you need is Starfire Protocol in order to gain double fusion grenades and the ability to regen fusion grenade energy while in an Empowering Rift or a Well. Ashes to assets on your helmet can also help with super regen if you need it, and having Witherhoard for tick damage to get your grenades back is great as well. This is one of the best support builds because you have Well of Radiance constantly for when your team may need it, but you are also completely self-sufficient at taking out champs and other enemies, making it one of the best GM builds in all of Destiny. Last but not least, we have what is, in my opinion, the best overall Hunter build for GMs. If the 1-2 punch with combination blow build from last season wasn't nerfed, I think that one would have actually been better and I would have put it on my list. But since we don't have a ton of arc burn GMs this season, and once again, 1-2 punch got hit pretty hard, I think the best overall bet to run now is Void. This build really just focuses on always having invis available, which is great for saving runs if everybody suddenly dies, or if you just need to get off revives or even complete objectives during the strike. And you are also able to mix in a lot of different Void exotics for whatever you personally think is best. Omni Oculus is great for carrying people, Orpheus Rigs are good when you need the ad clear, Aeons are good when you need heavy ammo from champions. You get the point, the build plays a ton of different ways. Within the subclass, first and foremost, I like to run Deadfall. I think with the recent changes, this is now the best tether to run overall. Then Gambler's Dodge is going to give us our Smoke Bomb back. And then I also like Vortex Grenades because they are the best for applying a debuff. Trapper's Ambush is then going to give our Smoke Bombs invis capabilities and allow us to use Quickfall. And then Vanishing Step makes our dodge apply invis too, so we now have multiple ways for this to proc. Lastly, fragment-wise, Echo of Undermining is what applies Weaken on grenade hits, so that's going to be a solid 15% debuff to use against tankier enemies. Echo of Obscurity is going to allow our finishers to also make us invisible, which is perfect when dealing with champions, especially while doing heavy ammo finishers. And then lastly, Echo of Persistence is going to increase our uptime on invis from all sources. Before Arc 3.0 came out, I thought this was still one of the best overall GM builds in the game, and in my opinion, it is way more balanced than most other builds, so the chances of this receiving a nerf are pretty low. We did obviously just receive news of a dodge cooldown nerf, but even with high mobility, this build should play super well next season too. Overall, these are the 3 best builds that you should be taking into GMs, and like I said, these builds are also great in a ton of other areas too, like Master Raids and Master Dungeons. Let me know your thoughts on each build in the comments below, and if there's any build you think also deserves a spot on this list. I stream a bunch over on my Twitch where we do low mans and speedruns live. A link to that and my Discord server are both in the description below. Anyways, that's all for this video, guys. As always, have a good one. Peace.